Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to fill in your LinkedIn profile. Now, the image on the left should be figure 4 from the book. The book has not yet gone to the graphic designer, so this might change. The image on the right is just a cut out version of that, or a blown up version of that, to help me show you. Now, if you were to look at my LinkedIn profile today, you would see that it's changed even since I've done this screen capture. All right, so figure 4 on the left, cut out on the right. Nomenclature is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. I'm going to talk about all these numbers individually. Okay, see you in a second. Okay, let's make a start. We're going to edit your contact information. We go to the Me, View Profile, and our profile comes up. We then click Contact Info. Now, once we're in here, we click the pencil and up it comes. All right, I can change my website URL. I'm going to change that to be a blog, which it is. That's a link to my Udemy course that I run, my geography course on Udemy. I can put my phone number in. I prefer not to do that. My address, I prefer not to do that. And my email address there, I suggest you put that in. Your birthday and birth month as well. I haven't put that in because I don't particularly want people wishing me birthdays. Happy birthdays. I'm going to show you how to change your Twitter account in a second, because you don't do it in this area here. And you change your profile name here. You click on that and up it comes, and you can change it there. All right, so I have been able to get I-Allen. Ian Allen was taken. For you, I would suggest a way to have a unique name is to have your name, which is likely to be taken, and with a dash, and then your profession. So for me, it might be I. Allen, geographer. For you, it might be, your name, accountant or marketer. Or I'll come back to here and exit that, and I have to save that change I made to my profile. Now, to change your Twitter account, you go to Me and you go Settings and Privacy, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. We go to Partners and Services, and that's where you change your Twitter account. B, your job preferences. It is important to show people that you're open to work, and here's where you do that. This Get Started in this box, and this is all your job preferences. You can add a title, so you might think of something like accountant or marketer, where you would like to work, where your job locations are, when you're available for work, and there's even a box you can tick for internship or temporary, part-time. Okay, and you can choose who can see this, only recruiters or all LinkedIn members. I would suggest that you would want to be open to all LinkedIn members. Okay, and it adds this hash open to work photo in your photo frame if you do that. So see that thing there? That's what it will look like. Now let's look at the intro section. Click on this pen icon, and you can edit your intro, your name, and your pronoun, Mr., Ms., all that sort of stuff. blah, blah, blah. All run-of-the-mill stuff, except for your headline. This is really, 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 really important. It's important because this is the place where you put key words, or sometimes called keywords, that people might be searching for. So to give you some extreme examples, let's look at this person here. Can you imagine anyone searching for a student at a university? Now, this person's obviously not serious. They don't have a photo, they don't have background, they don't have much at all. But I'm just making the point, all right? Once again, graduate student at university. Can you imagine anyone searching for that? Or out of the student realm, who would search for a company director? Or, even worse, a company director at company director. Okay, these people aren't necessarily serious, but I'm just illustrating a point. This is the sort of thing that you need. Student of computer science. Computer science is a keyword, right? Seeking intern opportunities. So people will search for intern, people will search for computer science. So if I was to type in computer science, we can see that it's there in jobs, in groups, and as a separate entity in this search bar. Imagine I was a marketer and I was really good at email marketing. So if I type in email lists, right, all we see in here are companies. Okay, that's all we see. Now let's try a different term, marketing. All right, so that's there in jobs, and generally you'll find it in groups and so forth. So the point is, if email marketing is a term that people are going to be searching for, email lists is not a term that people search for. So it's not a term to have in your headline. Make sure any terms that you put in your headline come up in this search bar. Okay, now let's look at photos. We have an inset photo, which is generally a headshot, and a background photo. So to get to the inset photo, you just click on it like that and up it comes. You have all these options of adding frames. This is the one that you should have here. You put open to work on it and it puts that green background. You want it as obvious as possible for people to tell that you're open to work, and this will also be a clue to LinkedIn to put you up as a result for people who are searching for people to work for them. Now, this inset photo, make sure that it's consistent with the way people generally look within your profession. So if people wear t-shirts generally in your profession, you should be wearing a t-shirt. If they wear, your standard consultant's clothes, open neck shirt, you should wear an open neck shirt. Just make yourself look like you'll fit in to that work environment. The specifications of these photos are in your book, and of course if you want to add it, you can upload a photo, use the camera. Make sure you have a crack at doing a reasonable photo. One in poor light and so forth is not a good look. It makes you look unprofessional. Then we come to this photo here, the background photo. You can upload a photo, you can crop it and adjust it in all sorts of different ways. This is one that I created in some software called Canva. You can do a whole heap of stuff in that and upload them. But if you want to just upload a photo from the web, because I'm a geographer, I might be interested in adding a map. So I can choose to look for maps. I can choose to refine that by images. This is in Google. I want to make sure that I've got a Creative Commons license. So that means that I'm allowed to use it without infringing anyone's copyright. The other tricky thing with this, for example, if I was to be wearing a red shirt or a red jumper like I am there, I could refine this by maps that are red, or if I was wearing a blue shirt, I could refine it by maps that are dominantly blue. Okay? And before I forget, in your intro, don't forget to add your location, because that helps LinkedIn to find jobs near you, find other professionals near you, and make your profile available to other people on the basis of your geography, i.e. where you live. It goes without saying that D, your about section, is important. Now, we are moving higher up your presence pyramid. Your LinkedIn about section is the first place you'll address the employer and workplace avatars in really seriously. You know, those ones that you created when you did your industry research. It is the place to make yourself approachable to your avatar, to make yourself look like you would fit in to their workplace, to make yourself look useful, relevant, interesting, to make your profile so it can be found. Like your headline, keywords are important in your about section. If there are 2 or 3 ways of describing what you do, then enter those terms into the search bar and have a look at the results. Pick a term that turns up, one that's being searched for. Now, you might also be wise to use variations of your keyword. For example, software engineer. Okay, you look at people. There's 10.5 million results. That's fine. You might also look at Python programmer. And there's 307,000 there. What about developer? People. There's 1.7 million. So these are terms that people are searching for more. And you just need to keep an eye on that. So with great power comes great responsibility, and keywords are one of those things that idea applies to. Don't keyword stuff. All right, keyword stuffing is where you use a lot of keywords so that search engines can find you. Now, that's great if you come up in a search engine result, and LinkedIn is a search engine in the way that we're looking at it here. It's also a relationship engine too, like Facebook is. But what we're talking about here is just the search engine component. The problem is that a keyword stuffed about section is going to be nonsensical to humans. You're going to look like you can't write, right? Now, this is a really, really delicate balance, I think. Now, I want you to think about something, and it's relevant to the approach that you should take when you're writing your about section. The last time you chose a Netflix movie or a movie on Prime, how did you go about that? Did you look at the first movie you came across, read the description and, the whole description, watch the entire trailer, and then the same for the next movie, look at reviews and so forth, and then the next movie, and then the next movie, and the next movie until you found one? I guess probably not. You probably scrolled and stopped based on an appealing image. Then maybe you read the headline. Then maybe you watched the trailer. Or you might have even just watched something on the basis of a recommendation from a friend, which comes into this idea of networking that I talk a lot about in this book. Now, I want to read you a paragraph from the introduction of Brendan Kane's Hook Point, because I think it's really quite relevant here. Okay, Brendan Kane's Hook Point. Introduction. The average person spends 11 hours a day interacting with digital media, including digital video, audio, TV, newspapers, magazines, and so forth. And they scroll through around 300 feet of content. Now, people use their phones 1,500 times a week and check their email inboxes 30 times an hour. Every 60 seconds on Facebook, there are 400 new users, 317,000 status updates, 147,000 uploaded photos, and 54,000 shared links. Approximately 95 million photos and videos are shared on Instagram on a daily basis. More than 500 hours of content are uploaded to YouTube every minute, and around 40,000 songs are uploaded to Spotify every day. Now, the point to me reading this paragraph is that your About section needs to be able to cut through some of that noise. You need to stand out a little bit from the crowd. Now, the way you do that is you use other people's profiles as inspiration. You refer to your avatars, and then you make those other profiles that you found, a number of them, you make them your own. Okay? Now, remember the lion story? When you're being chased by a lion, you don't need to be the fastest runner in the world. You only need to be faster than the person running next to you. Okay? So you only need to be better than other graduates that are writing their LinkedIn profiles. So the point I'd like to make, though, is don't be beige. Now, let's look at what I mean by being beige. I think this is one here. Okay. A lot of people that I notice, a lot of people seem to be reading these old-fashioned books on how to write a resume. Okay? And they're using all these old-fashioned, meaningless statements. And they're actually meaningless. If you put yourself in the boots of somebody who's reading these sort of statements all day, they're just going to yawn, they're just going to flick through to the next one, right? So, this stuff, like I'm a recent graduate who is always ready to accept any challenge and has quick problem-solving skills along with depth knowledge of networking, cloud computing, and penetration testing. Aside from that being very brief and really saying not too much, there's no full stop, there's a capital I. I mean, these are things that you need to be aware of. It makes this person look careless, even aside from all the other stuff going on. A fourth-year civil engineer student who is passionate about innovating and improving structural engineering. Well, that's not saying much. I am highly organised, hard-working and ambitious individual with great interest in the technology and engineering industries. My strong organisational skills have enabled me to work effectively with a wide range of people. That's one of those old-fashioned ways that you write your resume. People just flick these days. If you don't make an impression, pretty quick smart, they're just going to flick to the next person. That one's saying not much, and etc. So let's look at some other ones that I think are a bit better. Look at this statement. We do not inherit this planet from our parents. We borrow it from our children. Does that get you in? That first sentence. Okay? I think that's absolutely amazing. This is Marissa Polselli. This is that woman who I'm suggesting you listen to her podcast with Jeffrey Shaw. And I'll put that link inside the books. Words have been my passion since I got my first library card when I was 6 years old. Wow. Fast forward a few decades, and the joy I first discovered in our neighbourhood's one-room library now sparks as I work with people who are at the crossroads of some kind, and need a helping hand putting their vision into words. That's an amazing statement. That's one of the best ones I've ever seen, actually. And here's mine. I redid mine after listening to Marissa's podcast, and I looked at Jeffrey Shaw's, as well, and quite a number of others. And, this is not going to take you just half an hour to do. Expect that this took me, maybe a couple of days to just ponder over and write. So here we are. I'm having a crack. Geographers are multidisciplinary. We tend to know a little about a lot rather than a lot about a little. This is our superpower. It allows us to see links that others cannot. It has allowed me to consult to the United Nations, to all levels of the Australian government, to be a science broadcaster, and to teach over 12,000 physical and social geography students online. Okay, and off I go. I think I've done all right with that. I'm sure that I'll look back on that at some point and have another go. But these are the sorts of things I'm thinking about. Try and look at lots of people's about sections and get a feel for some really well written ones in your profession, and try and emulate them in some ways. And what you'll notice is that the really good ones are trying to tell a story and they're hooking people in. E. Now, the featured area is where you manage your featured content. In other words, from here, you click this plus button and you choose to feature something. Now, this area is really important because what it does is it builds your credibility in the eyes of anyone who might happen to look at your profile. It tells them that you're someone who participates in your profession and doesn't just spectate. It's a low-key way for them to get a feel for what makes you tick. And if you regularly add content that the avatars that you created in that previous section suggest would be relevant to your industry, it's also potentially making you look useful to hiring managers. It's another building block to your presence. That thing that I talk about in your presence pyramid. It's the thing that some people might call a personal brand, but in this case, it's your own personal or micro personal brand. Okay? Now, before we go any further, I want to address the problem of imposter syndrome. Now, if you suffer from imposter syndrome, you're going to need to work on that. You need to understand that your opinions are important too, even if you're a newcomer to the industry. The reality is that only a few people are going to see what you post, and those that do are probably mostly going to be impressed that you're just participating in your industry. Ask yourself, do you critically examine every LinkedIn post that you see? Probably not. And other people won't do that to your posts either. The thing is, the more that you put your thoughts out there, the easier it's going to become to do it. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this. Years ago, I went to a radio station with the aim of just sitting in on a show, just to see how it all worked. And I became pretty relaxed, and around a half hour into the show, the host ambushed me and asked for my opinion on something. Ian, what do you think of that? It's like nothing came out. Honestly, I didn't think I had anything important to say. Now, fortunately, a friend encouraged me to give it another go. I sat in on a couple of other shows and eased in. You know what? 6 months later, I was hosting my own show. Apparently, I did have something important to say. Like that, you do too. Here's some examples of some things that you might want to feature. Okay, you might want to add a post that you've posted and perhaps it performed pretty well. You had quite a few people looking at it and maybe you got a couple of comments. Or you've written an article, or you could link to a blog post on someone else's website or on your website and maybe add a comment as to why you think that's important. Or maybe you've got some media on your computer like a video or a PowerPoint presentation. Now in the book, I give you a link to a blog post that shows you how to add a voiceover to a PowerPoint presentation. So a PowerPoint presentation, one that you might have even just given to your class, with a voiceover added, is going to be a really, really good thing to add. So you can click on this pencil here to manage your featured content, to change the order, add a comment, change the order. Here we go. You can do that. You could edit and add a comment if you want, delete if you want. I accidentally hit that delete button on a post before. So whenever you can, I want you to use hashtags, but the thing is, you need to be using hashtags that are actually being searched for. And I'll give you an example of this. You know by now that I'm a geographer, and I just typed in geography teacher, hash geography teacher, to see if that was a hashtag that was being followed. There are only 48 followers. Now, as a geographer, if I typed in geography, hash geography, there are 5,766 followers. So, of course, geography is going to be a much better hashtag to use, and you are going to find similar hashtags for whatever industry you're in. Now, the thing is that before you can feature something, you actually need to have something that you want to feature. And you do that, if I go back here, you do that by coming down into your activity area and clicking the start a post button. And from here, you're going to be able to create a post. Now, a post can really only at maximum be a couple of paragraphs long. You might post a link to a website or some such thing. You might and add a comment about it. Of course, add your hashtag. You might add a photo. It's a bit repetitive for that other stuff that I talked about before. Add a document, a video, and so forth. I would prefer, though, that you go to your home screen to do that. You can you get the same dialogue from the top of your home screen. Start a post, okay? And all that stuff's in there. But you can also, from here, write an article. As different from a post, which is a couple of paragraphs long. I think I worked it out, an article can be around 15,000 words long. They're formattable with headlines and bold text and underlines and dot points and numbers and quotes, etc. All right, so once again, use your hashtags in here too. That is the end of the featured area description. F, people you may know. Now, the more complete your profile and the more you participate in the LinkedIn profile, the more likely LinkedIn is to show you relevant suggestions. Now, that doesn't just apply to the people you may know that are turning up in your LinkedIn profile. It also applies to you getting yourself into hiring managers, people you may know area. So let's put our hiring manager glasses on for a moment and have a look at some of these people you may know that are turning up in my area. A lot of these people are turning up not on the basis of my LinkedIn profile, but on the basis of the searching I've been doing lately and people I've been looking at in order to put these videos together. Okay, so this first one, every little piece of today is making you into who you will be tomorrow. Now that is really inspiring, but it's actually not telling me anything about this person. All right, I'm a hiring manager. I'm just looking through. I'm thinking, how can somebody help me solve a problem? This next one, PYP coordinator and project leader, you know, that's a job that tells me what they do. Perhaps they could have made better use of the headline so that this text didn't run out. This next one, recent graduate, university, BSc honours in what? Recent graduate in what? Okay. This next one, research assistant, the Department of Forensic Medicine. Yeah, no photo. It would be better if there was a photo. This next one, graduate student at the University of... global winner of. Well, student of what? Global winner of what? G, your experience. You click the pencil to edit something that you have already entered, or you click the plus button to add a new experience. Now, a lot of this is really self-explanatory. The title of the job, the employment type, full-time, part-time, so forth, who you worked for, where you worked, when you worked, headline, industry, and so forth. Now, as always, your headline is really important. Your industry is important. You need to align all these words with words that are being searched for. And one thing I'll say is that when you get to your description, you need to think about two concepts. One is brand alignment and another is quantification. This is where I see a lot of people letting themselves down in both their resumes and in their LinkedIn profiles, because they might say something like, I was a barista, right? Yeah, you're a barista. What about if you brand aligned that? Okay, I was head barista at some really famous cafe. Okay, that's brand alignment. Or I was a volunteer. I see that sort of thing in a lot of resumes. But what about I was a volunteer for some famous charity? Then you might incorporate quantification. So for the barista, you might say, as head barista for some famous cafe, I oversaw 5 staff. Quantification. I introduced procedures that made staff work more efficiently and improves and standardised the customer experience. During the short time I was there, cafe turnover increased by 30%. Right? Another quantification, 30%, that's a number. This is something that hiring managers can grasp. Or if you were a volunteer, you might say, I was a volunteer for this famous charity, as we've already done. A city-based organisation, you might say a New York, for example, based organisation, or a London-based organisation with 500 staff. Quantification, 500 staff. Supported by $50 million in annual donations. Another quantification. And servicing 5,000 clients each day. Another quantification. I supervised 4 administration interns. Once again, another quantification. So this idea of brand alignment and quantification, you always need to be thinking of that. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that a lot more when we get into writing your resumes. H, education. This area is pretty self-explanatory. The plus button is where you add educational items, the dates and what the course was and where you did it. And the pencil button is where you edit anything that you've already added. Now, coming back to this area here, I want you to pay attention to the description, because in the absence of really relevant work experience, this is a place that you can make yourself relevant to a potential employer. So I give the example in the book. Perhaps you're studying to be a software engineer and you really like the finance sector. What you might do in here is you might highlight how you enjoyed, for example, Python programming, and how you enjoyed coding an app that was relevant to the finance sector. And you might also add some media showing the app in some way, or you might add a link to the app if it's in the cloud, or you might add a link to a presentation you've done about the app. Make sure, as I've talked about in other places, if there's 2 or 3 ways of describing something, make sure you pick a way using keywords that people are actually searching for. I, skills. Formerly, skills and endorsements. To add a new skill, you click this plus button here, and LinkedIn will come up with a suggested list of skills that you might want to add. These are the ones that it's suggested for me. You can also add additional skills if you'd like. Ideally, the skills that you add will be aligned with the job that you're targeting. So to help you decide which skills to add, refer back to those LinkedIn profiles that you were using before for your inspiration. I want you to look closely at them. Notice which skills that these people are being endorsed for, because they're the skills that are important to their career. And you know what? They're probably also going to be important to your career as well. Ask yourself, can you be endorsed for those same skills? So they're likely to turn up in selection criteria for some job that you apply for down the track. So if you can't be endorsed for them, ask yourself once again, could you easily upgrade your skills so that you could be endorsed? Now, I'm not thinking of upgrading by enrolling in some college course or something. Think of resources like YouTube and Udemy and other sorts of sites like that. And I think I've mentioned these before elsewhere in the book. Some people are going to tell you to add as many skills as you possibly can in here because that helps the LinkedIn search engine. I think you can add up to like around 50. Now, I don't agree with this. I think that adding lots and lots of skills is just overwhelming when people look at it. I think it actually gives a terrible impression. I think it looks like you're playing the system. I don't think it's going to attract any endorsements. I think people are just going to look at it, see this big list of things that they could be endorsing you for, and then just be overwhelmed and move on. Okay? So my advice is to choose carefully 10 or 15 skills or thereabouts that align with your industry expectation, and you know that your colleagues are going to feel comfortable endorsing you for. So you click the pen icon to delete or rearrange any of your skills. So I could go into GIS here, which is Geographical Information System, my specialty. I could delete that skill, but I've got quite a few endorsements for it, so I wouldn't dare do that. You could rearrange them as well. Now, I suggest that you should be moving the skills that are most important to you to the top. That's going to make them easier to see. And by that, I mean when you look at your skills here, there's only 3 skills that come up at the top, and I have to click this button, see all 27 skills. So here's me telling you to add 10 or 15 skills, and I've got 27, but other people have added those. Okay. So the idea is your most important skills at the top, so they turn up here without having to click that button. Now, LinkedIn automatically categorizes your skills into these areas of industry knowledge, tools and technologies, interpersonal skills, and other skills that you might have. So once you've got a skill there on your profile, your first degree connections are going to be able to see a plus button next to that skill, and that's where they can endorse you. So be sure to identify people who could do that and ask them to do it. All right. You could also click this button here to take a skill quiz. Now, as with many things, the usefulness and the value of these skills is questioned by some people. But the good news is that really, I don't think they're going to do you any harm. I think that when you're starting out, you need every bit of help you can get to get yourself noticed. So a few things about this: your results, if you do the skill test, remain private until you choose to publish the result. If you don't get above the magic 70% pass score, that will also allow you to display a verified skill badge on your profile. You're only going to be able to repeat this test once every 3 months. J, recommendations. Your first degree connections can give you a recommendation. you could click the plus button here to ask for a recommendation. You can also give one too if you want. You could ask here as well. These are really just the equivalent of a reference that you might have associated with the job application. Now you can see I don't have any recommendations. I've not been proactive in asking for them. However, I do have quite a few endorsements. K, accomplishments. Publications used to be just one category of this, along with things like awards, language skills and so forth. But today, as I pull this video together, I find that there's only the option to have publications there. It's possible that LinkedIn is just doing a test. You might have a whole bunch of other things that you could add in here though. But you add them in just by giving the title, the author and all that sort of standard stuff. And you can see that I've hit the plus button for each of my publications, and I have 15 in all. So I'm hoping that you will be able to put other things in there as well, but I am not. Like I say, possibly just a LinkedIn experiment. L, interests. Now this area is populated by groups that you're involved with and companies that you've liked and things like that. So you can see I used to go to Monash University. I'm in a whole bunch of groups. You can see that I'm in 44 groups. Some of those groups are about writing, some of those groups are about geography, some of them are about careers, resumes and so forth. Before I go, reviews are air for authors. We need them to survive. So if you're finding this book useful, dare I say enjoyable, I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to leave an honest review by clicking one of the review buttons below this video. Thanks so much.